An old gem just came in that's going to be quite the challenge. It's an old early 60s Ampeg reverberacket R12R with a 7591 power tube. So the schematic shows 6v6s. The output tube sockets are definitely wired for the 7591s and 7591As to be precise. All the schematics for all these models show a 5Y3. It came in with a 5AR4. We'll see if that turns out to be a safe operating condition for this amp. I imagine it will. It has a replacement power transformer. It's Mercury. In fact, all three transformers have been changed out for Mercuries. So that won't be the problem. Looking through, there are some values which do not match any schematics. This one, for instance, the schematic shows us 250. This is 140. That does not look original. Instead of the original 22K here, we've got two 10Ks in series. That's not a problem. Of more concern is this resistor here, which the schematics all show as a 1K 10 watt. In reality, measures about 60 ohms, and it looks like it was a half watt, 1 watt on a good day, and it's got a lot of discoloration, though that may be that brown glue that's all over this. But before I can get into any of that fun stuff, I can't reach anything here. I can't see anything here. The rectifier tube wires from the new power transformer were brought right here in the middle, obstructing my view of other things, and someone else has been in here already. You can see various little solder burn marks on wires from trying to work in this space. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to buy myself a lot of room by backing out this foot switch wire and taping it, or actually just tuck it behind the CE multi-section filter can cap, which also doesn't have the original values of this model, but should be fine. And I'm going to go in here and desolder everything in this area, move all the wires out of my way, and start to rebuild. And I'm going to redo the rectifier connections from the power transformer down and below. So I'll have clear access to all this stuff here. I need to get into this area. With an amp like this, my first goal is to get it to power on safely and to have no hum in the output. I don't care about the preamp at this point. I care about the power tubes, the rectifier, the filtering, all the voltage droppers, heater wiring, the ground scheme, and later we'll introduce things like the preamp tubes and negative feedback and all that fun stuff. But before I can even start that, I've got to disconnect a lot of this stuff because it's just spaghetti junction and it has no function. Okay, I've got a lot of stuff moved out of the way, and I've got all the old little bits of old wire removed from the rectifier tube, and I can see what's happening here. Here's where the choke is in place of that 1K on the schematic. There's a lot of wire here, a mixture of old stuff, new stuff, some new stuff that I'm not too crazy about, and there's just a lot of clutter, and I'm gonna have to be doing a lot of work in this area anyway. So pretty much from here on, I'm gonna remove everything off this board in this area. This is all stuff related to voltage dropping resistors and cathode bias stuff. And here's the cathode resistor. Here's the bypass cap on the cathode on the output tubes. I think all this needs to be neatened up, and some junk wire needs to be removed. And I'm just going to get everything really clean slate over here and then begin the process of rebuilding neatly and doing it one thing at a time, and I'll know everything I'm connecting and why. I think that's going to be the only logical approach to this that should end up in a very nice, clean result. All right, after moving stuff, all these little blobs of solder started falling out. And right here, you can see one where so much solder has been applied to this eyelet over the years that there's just a blob underneath, and it's leaking out between the top board and the backer board. And so I need to get all the solder out of these old eyelets so that I'm just not adding to a giant pool, which can, if there's a pool under here and a pool under here, they can bridge, and then all of a sudden you have got all kinds of problems. Things shorting to each other, paths getting confused, etc. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. I've got some sucking to do. Okay, much better. Now, right here, these wires, they're passing right beneath this eyelet where all that goop came, all that globs of solder came out. There's not really a backing board as you think of it with a fender. There's a wooden block beneath this on the Ampeg, but there's just air on the bottom. So all that solder was pulling up, was just falling, and that would have been resting on these heater wires. And so if there's a problem with insulation on the jacket of these heater wires, you could have had a heater to cathode short, or if it were to bridge all the way to the chassis, you could have a cathode just at ground and the output tubes be running crazy hot. Now the next thing I've got to do is get in here and, as much as feasible, loosen up this old flux and give everything a clean. So I'll do that in just a sec. As is always too common with old Ampegs, this particular amp does not match any of the schematics out there, be they the official Ampeg schematics or the Joe Piazza schematics, which are often more accurate than the official ones. So I am going to go through here and draw up the schematic of the amp that's actually in front of me, as much as possible as originally built. There's a couple of things here and there, like this cap in parallel with another cap and this filter cap that's been added. But I've been doing this a while. I can kind of suss out the original intent, and I can certainly see which components are connected to which pins on the tubes. And just go from the input to the output and draw the whole thing out, and give all the various power nodes the correct labels, and then figure out how this thing was originally built, how it should work. And if there were any glaring errors in that, I will correct them, because I'm not too hung up on just like it was in 1960 whatever, because when it comes to Ampegs like this, you could have 3 amps from the same week, and they'd all have different components in them, and they'd all sound completely different from each other, and they'd all be vintage correct Ampegs, because what the hell, Ampeg? What the hell? Anyway, what the hell? Let's go into this and make it right. All right, after looking at older schematics, later schematics, and the schematic which most closely matches the amp in front of me, though not quite, there are certain common aspects of all the versions of this amp where they have the same thing happening, and I was able to trace everything out. Here's my little scribbled, as I went through the amp, the important bits, working out some filter nodes and stuff, and kind of planning what I'm going to do at that end of the circuit board. Here's my neatened up thing, and any place where there's an asterisk, that's where the value deviates, sometimes minorly, sometimes majorly, from the other amps. And it looks like this amp has been both badly serviced, where this one's supposed to have 300 ohms, this one's supposed to have 2.2K, there's a 330 here, there's a 4.7K here, some more mistakes on the plates there, and the factory plates on on V1 are reversed. This one's 270, it's supposed to be 120K, this one's 120K, it's supposed to be 270K. All these things make a difference. So I know where the circuit is now. I know where the circuit was supposed to be. And I have a game plan, though I need to draw it out more neatly, on how to make this thing work properly with correct filter nodes. So it is time for me to order some parts and put all this away for now until the parts arrive, because I've got to undo some factory mistakes, undo some bad repairs in the past, and kind of correct some goofs in the schematic that will make the amp sound even better than a normally good sounding example. I have a great respect for Ampeg, I have a great respect for Magnatone, Gibson, etc., all the funky little amps from the 50s and 60s, but there is a reason that Fender dominated and continues to a large extent to dominate the American amp market. They were better designed, better built, more consistent in their quality, and much easier to service because they were designed to be serviced. So I'm not going to make this into a Fender, but I'm going to remove some mistakes while honoring the original intent.